whatever that this is, that this issuing this out of his body, now possibly, not for sure, but possibly. I mean, if that thing's on his arm and you can bandage up your arm or whatever, and God is saying, don't take any chances.
And this all represents sin.
And this all represents sin.
He does it for our benefit. He knows. He knows what happens. If you touch it, or even if you're around it, it ain't long till you're contagious.
Well, Connie, if she truly has a cold, and if she's running a fever, and she touches this pew right here, and I come along behind her and lay my hand on this, guess what? Or whether it be a cold or whether it be a flu. Now pneumonia doesn't spread that way, but God is trying to protect his people for their good. Everything listen to me today. Everything he's doing is not for him. It's for them. These 2 chapters that we studied previous to this, or 3, whatever it was, concerning the leprosy, and all the things that went on through there. I mean, this is not just because God is saying, this is for their protection, for the good of the people. This whole book is for the good of the people.
Amen.
The problem with our country, the problem with the world today, Larry, they don't follow this book.
Amen.
If we followed this book and lived as Christians should live, you know how many less prisons we'd have? I didn't say we wouldn't have any. Less prisons we'd have. You know, there's new excitement down in Floyd County. You know what? They're getting a new prison. The problem is it's an old prison that was shut down, that was privately run. Now the state's going to take it over. You know how sad that is, that they've shut it down and now they've got to open it back up?
And it'll be full before you know it.
The problem is they're probably so overcrowded in the other ones that they'll just transfer them there. Our problem is not our judicial system. Our problem is our biblical system. We don't follow it.
Amen.
Our homes.
It starts at home.
The home has been destroyed. Devils did a really good job at that, hadn't they? Whosoever toucheth his bed and whosoever shall touch his bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. So if Brother Jim is sick with this infection or running sore, and I go visit Brother Jim and pray for Brother Jim and I leave, the Bible said I'd be unclean. Simply because I was there, I touched him, I touched the bed. Maybe I didn't touch him. Maybe I just stood at the side of his bed and bust my leg because I'd be unclean. Boy, ain't you glad for grace that we don't live under these kind of things today. And he that sitteth on anything whereon he sat that hath an issue shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And he that toucheth the flesh of him that hath the issue shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. Why is God having them bathe themselves and change his clothes? What's the easiest way to keep from spreading a common cold? They say wash your hands 10 times a day. If you work in public constantly, wash your hands. I know nurses, when they go from one room to, they come out of that room, they go into that room, they got to hit that sanitizer button. You come out of that room, you hit that sanitizer button.
And sometimes the doctors don't. I never did understand that. My nurses come in and out of a patient I'm visiting. Here comes the doctor. He doesn't even do it.
They don't follow.
We guys are pigs.
Huh? We're pigs.
That's all I can tell you.
Help him, Lord. I'm going to tell you, if I come to visit you in the hospital, the first thing I do when I walk out of your room
Amen.
is I stick my hand under that thing and I go to rubbing my hands. Because if you're sick, I don't want it. Now, I realize I'm not going to catch cancer off of you, or if you've had surgery, but you never know. I'm still going to put my... Huh?
I mean, you're not going to catch cancer, but you never know what other germs
And
might be
most
floating
sickness
around.
you get by going to the hospital because of something.
Right.
They're going to take blood from me, and everybody's sitting there coughing around. I said, guys, get me out of here. I don't want to sit and get this flu bug from these people.
Hey, Steve, I'm going.
Verse 9. And what saddle wheresoever he rideth upon that saddle, that upon that hath the issue shall be unclean, and whosoever toucheth anything that was under him that shall be unclean until the evening, and he that beareth any of the things shall wash his clothes and bathe himself to water and be unclean until evening. And whomsoever he toucheth that hath the issue and hath not rinsed his hands in water, he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. And the vessel of earth that he toucheth which shall have the issue shall be broken, and every vessel of wood shall be rinsed in water. And when he that hath an issue is cleansed of his issue, then he shall number to himself 7 days for his cleansing, and wash his clothes, and bathe the flesh in running water, and shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take to him 2 turtle doves and 2 young pigeons, and come before the Lord unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and shall give them unto the priest, and the priest shall offer them one for a sin offering, another for a burnt offering. The priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord of this house. Now, notice the scale back on what's to be brought. You remember there's 3 lambs is to be brought, or 2 lambs and a pair of turtle doves and a pigeons that to be brought for leprosy. This issue, he just cuts it back to these 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons that's to be offered up. Notice the vessel, if it's a clay jar, is to be broken. What do you think they've done to that saddle? What do you think they've done to the garments? What do you think that they've done to the bed that he lied on? They burned all that. Why? How many knows that fire purifies? It cleanses. Remember when you get a splinter when you're at home, and Mom would take a needle and light it up with a cigarette lighter or whatever, and get that needle hot, and then she'd, what are you doing that for, Mom? You trying to burn me? No, I'm cleaning the needle up before I stick it in your skin.
But see, they do the clay, but the wood vessels, they just clean them.
Just wash it.
And your wood would be more apt to take
Absorb
than your clay.
Of course, they both have pores that can absorb things in. The wood does, and also the clay pot does. Even though it might have been through the kennel and be hard, there's still pores inside that clay.
And wood also.
Right, and the wood also.
There's a reason, but
And the priest shall offer them one for the sin offering, one for the burnt offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord in his house. And if any man's seed of his copulation go out from him, then he shall wash his flesh in water and be unclean until the evening. And every garment and every skin whereupon is the seed of copulation shall be washed with water and be unclean until evening. Everybody know what they're talking about here, don't they?
No, it's copulation.
Huh?
It's copulation.
Ejaculation. That's the best way I could put it. That's the seed of a man. Okay? So if you prematurely spilled, or it starts leaking out, or anything that it touches, here it's saying that it's unclean. Verse number 18. And the woman also with whom shall lie with with the seed of copulation, she shall bathe themselves in water and be unclean until the evening. And if the woman have an issue and her issue is in her flesh be blood, then she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the evening. And everything that she lieth upon of her separation shall be unclean. Everything also that sitteth upon shall be unclean, and whatsoever toucheth her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean to evening. And whomsoever toucheth anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until evening. And if it be on her bed or anything wherein she toucheth, when he toucheth it, he shall be unclean until the evening. Verse 24. Well, ain't this exciting? Just thrilling stuff. If any man lie with her at all, now it changes a little bit, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean, even 7 days of all the bed whereon he lieth shall be unclean. So if they come together and have sexual intercourse during this time, the scripture said, not only is she unclean until the 7 days up, now he's unclean for 7 days. God's serious about this, isn't he?
Jamie,
Yes, sir?
I've noticed in here, when they get unclean, they're to wash their hands.
Wash themselves, their whole body.
Okay, wash their body. But when they got clean, they used to do it over running water. So you were just washing your hands in the basin, I guess, and then throwing it out. But when they got clean, they used to wash it in running water.
In other words, the water doesn't necessarily mean down by the creek, but it could be someone pouring water on your hands. That's considered running water in biblical times.
I wonder why it's just that one time that they say it.
Well, it's, I don't know.
Just wash, it was just a command to wash.
Where I come from, if you got baptized in a baptistry, man, it wasn't no good. You know how I feel about it? Wet's wet. Whether it be here, whether it be the lake. We didn't have ponds and lakes. Well, there is a couple lakes down in there, but all we had was the river or the creek to baptize in. We didn't have ponds. Now, people, one of our missionaries that's been here, Brother Nathaniel, sent me, I believe it's who it was this week, sent me a picture where he had baptized in a swimming pool. God, you're going to baptize all? I mean, that's kind of where I came from. So what is the difference between the running water and the still water? I don't know the significance of why the one is there and why the other one is there. I really don't understand, but I don't.
This is to wash it away.
Well, supposedly the other was away the pot of water, or the pan of water when you wash your hands.
I think of a lot of baptistries, don't they drain the tank after they do a baptism and then fresh water is put in? I don't know if they do or not.
We don't. I mean, if it's been a long time since we had to fill that thing up, unfortunately. But when we fill it up, we generally leave it for 2 or 3 weeks. We have, over at Rutland, we took one of them little things that you put in a pool and put chlorine tablets on it and just let it circulate around in there to help keep it clean longer. I know this. You let it sit in there a while, it starts stinking and leaves a really bad scum. Right, Larry?
And that was a true really, they had to pack their water and you underclothes. They didn't have
You didn't go in the kitchen and turn the valve on, right? Or in the bathroom and turn the faucet on.
That's got to be worked for.
By the way, you know whose job it was to get the water? It was the women's job. I'm just saying, Take it up for the women there, Connie, in case you didn't notice that. Prime rib.
Tell you one thing, you don't forget your baptism when you get baptized in Raccoon Creek in November of 1980. You got to break the ice along the edge and it's snowing. You don't forget that one.
January the 2nd, 1977 is when I got baptized.
November the 26th, 1980.
Everybody knows 1977 was the coldest winter on record around here. That far back as I can, I mean, I'm 53, that's the coldest winter I ever remember. The Ohio River froze over that year. The Guy and Dot River froze so bad that January and February that they thought that it was going to rip the bridge out. All that ice up there was going to rip the pillars out from under the bridge, and they thought they was going to have to blast the ice up to get it apart.
Brother Jamie, was that when we had a blizzard?
78 was the blizzard, wasn't it?
Because I know
With feet of snow, not inches of snow, feet of snow, like 3 feet, wasn't it?
I worked in that. Bad blizzard.
Just as a sidebar, I got a brand new sleigh, Christmas of 76, and I was 10 years old. And then here comes that big freeze and everything, and I didn't go to school for like, I don't know, seemed like a month and a half. I went sleigh riding every day. We would go to car hoods down off the hill. You ever rode a car hood? Yeah. You have coal truck in there too. And we'd piled about 7 or 8 on that thing. See, the only problem down there, at the bottom of the hill, was the creek. Or you come onto the road, and if you didn't go down the road and you went across the road, you hit the creek. Ouch.
Better than hitting a tree.
Better than hitting a tree, that's right. I did hit the ditch a time or two with that thing.
Jump off a big hill with our sled, and the runners finally, where everybody was going and coming off there across the road. Make sure the cars coming, you just come off like straight across the road and everything.
We go all the way up as far as what traffic went up to where A.J. Ellis lived, and start down off there. And he had to have chains to get all the way up on the hill where he lived. And we come down through, and at the bottom of that hill, right where Bill Mitchell and his family lived, there was a big curve like that. And I didn't hug the inside of that thing tight enough, and I started around that curve, and that sleigh just went like that into the ditch. Ouch, that hurt.
Kids don't do that anymore.
They don't have fun like that, hurt themselves anymore. All right, back to our exciting Sunday school lesson. If any woman have an issue of blood, this is our verse 25. Issue of blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it runneth beyond the time of her separation, all the days of her issue she shall be unclean. Shall be all the days of her separation, she shall be unclean. Every bed whereupon she lieth, all the days of her issue shall be upon her as the bed of her separation, and whatsoever she sitteth upon shall be unclean as the uncleanness of her separation. And whosoever toucheth those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes, bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. If she be cleansed of her issue, then she shall number to herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. On the 8th day she shall bring two turtles, should be 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, and bring them to the priest to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. The priest shall offer one for a sin offering, the other for an offering. The priest shall make an atonement for her before the Lord for the issue of her uncleanness. Thus shall ye separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness, that they die not in their uncleanness, that they defile, and when they defile my tabernacle that is among them. In other words, if you went into this tabernacle, notice the sacrifices are brought to the door of the tabernacle. The priest comes to the door of the tabernacle, receives them, and goes to offer them up before you. You don't go in and offer them up. He comes to the door. Now, on the other sacrifices, you're allowed, if you're offering let's say, a freewill offering to the Lord, or any other burnt offering, you come in, let's say you bring the ram and the bullock, you come in, you lay your heads upon that thing, and the priest reaches you a knife, and you slit the throat inside there, he catches the blood, and then offers the rest of everything else up. Here, they're bringing this to the door, and they stand outside while he goes on in, or goes back in, and he offers his sacrifice up. Because if they step inside that door unclean, zap! God, they said, and the reason for, I read it there and you'll hear, the reason that all this is like this, so I don't have to kill you. Wow. Why would God kill someone over this kind of thing? That's what he's saying. That they die not. That's what that means. Because sin cannot come before a holy God. Anything that is unclean. Here's why the children of Israel were separated from their God. Is because the sacrifices that they did bring when they brought them whatever they could. Remember when Jesus went into the temple and there was them there that sold sacrifices? Why did he get angry? Number one, they made no preparation to come to church. Uh-oh. That'll preach right there. Come on. They just showed up to see what they could get. Then it offered up to God. And they didn't, any just whatever was there. Well, and them that had it charged an outlandish price. I'm sure they could have brought it from the house or caught it or whatever and been a whole lot cheaper. When we try to do things the easy way, to take the easy way out, it always costs us more in the end. Can I get some amens on that?
Amen.
Always. All right. This is the law of him that hath an issue, and from whose seed goeth forth him, and he is defiled therewith. And her that is sick of her flowers, and of him that hath an issue of a man or of a woman, and him that lieth with her that is unclean. The good news is that's all of that. All right, so we'll get to study something a little bit more exciting next week, which is why God won't kill you. Thank God we live under the grace dispensation. Amen. Let's take a break and we will come back for Sunday school here in a little bit.